So you bought a house when you were single, then you got married, and then you added your wife to title. Let's talk about this one right here. So what happens to your property if you get married and then you add your spouse to title to something that you owned prior to the marriage? Well, it's going to vary state to state, but in this question, this person lives in California. California is considered a community property state, which means anything you acquire after the marriage is 50-50. It doesn't matter, businesses, real estate, whatever, it's 50-50, except if it's separate property. So this was separate property, but in 24, you added this person to the title, meaning you gave them ownership in a property. So I'm not a lawyer. I can't give you advice on this, but I'm telling you that this is a very big problem. You have basically just given a gift of equity, a gift to your spouse saying, hey, I want this property to be both of ours, and it's going to be a problem. So if I were you, I would hire a good divorce attorney. And at the end of the day, you're probably going to pay that divorce attorney just as much as you are going to give her in that equity. So it sucks, man. Keep your property single. But if you can't keep the property single, then what you need to do is, because I'm assuming that the only reason you put a second person on the deed is because you needed to do that for the loan. Or maybe you were asking her to pay some of the mortgage, and she said, well, if I'm going to pay some of the mortgage, then I want to be ownership of this as well. So I'm not sure. I keep saying she because I'm a him. So if it's a man and wife, or wife and husband, or man and man, whatever it is, if you decide to put a second person on the deed of your house because maybe you're asking them to pay that mortgage, then they're going to be entitled, depending on the state, they're going to be entitled to some of that equity. But what you can do is, you may want to check into this. How did you file the title? And if no one told you about this, this is a big deal. So if you file it tenants by entirety, then that would mean you're equal. Okay. And if you do tenants by entirety with rights to survivorship, means if you own the property and they own the property and one of you passes away, that ownership goes completely to the other person. The person who passed away, their family, their inheritance, they wouldn't have any access to that money. But if you hold the property titled in tenants in common, then you can separate the percentage of ownership. You can say, I'm going to add you to the title. I'm going to keep 90% of the ownership. I'm going to give you 10% of the ownership. Then through a divorce, you would say, okay, you agreed that only 10% of this property is yours, and that therefore it's worth $500,000. Here's your $50,000. Have a good day. Not it's worth $500,000 and now you owe them $250,000. So it's a big difference. So doing title work correctly is a huge thing. And if you don't know which way you should go,